All right. Welcome, everyone. This is Gary Meek, living in Sacramento, California, and we are continuing on with our buyer's course, kind of the steps, the process, finding out what it takes to buy a property before you get into escrow, so at least you understand the process. Today, I have my most amazing escrow officer with me, Miss Maria Spaeth. How are you today?
Good. Hello. How are you?
Good. I am doing great, thanks. So, we are going to be talking about the buyer process, and so I brought you in to talk about escrow and title. Can you kind of give a overview of what escrow and title are, how they're connected, and kind of how they're separate at the same time?
Yes. So we are the third party mutual customer or client for your seller, your buyer, your lender, if you have one in there, and anybody that brings together for the sale. We do the starting process. So once you get into contract, we take the contract in, we contact your buyer to introduce ourselves, give them wiring instructions for their earnest money deposit, which is the deposit that needs to be in within 72 hours from when you enter contract. And then we run the title report, make sure that there's no liens and judgments that don't, we satisfy all of those. We issue title insurance. So the buyer has a clean title insurance, which is like a mini credit report against your home. And then we help walk through the lender if there's any requests that they need to get the loan approved. And then we go to signing once loan docs are ready. And then we help fund and we facilitate all of the money to make sure that all the payoffs are done and proceeds are given out.
So people are going to find out that when they start this process that there's two fees. There's an escrow fee and a title fee. Can you kind of describe what each of the pieces are? Not maybe the dollar figure, but the pieces. What does escrow do? And then what does title do to make it a little more specific?
Yeah, so escrow is your main contact. You don't really talk to our title guys. They do all the title and research and look for any easements that are on the property to make sure you have right-of-ways to all of your access to your property that you're buying. And then the escrow, so they do all the title portion. The escrow portion is the one you talk more to. We do the money handling. We, any HOA docs that need to be ordered up front, we order all of those. We order national hazard disclosures. We make sure title is clean. Property taxes are in. If there's any vesting issues, we take care of that, meaning the way that people title. And then as part of our opening package, we also send out a vesting questionnaire to the buyers. So we're here to help them if they need to understand how they need to be vested in the way that their title is to be held. We're here for trust questions, anything for that part of it, for the escrow process of it.
Okay, very, very cool. So we're going to walk through the actual process. You guys have seen this in this series, that there's several steps. So of course, the first step everybody loves is we get to go out and look at pretty houses. Then you go out and you got to get pre-approved. Then we start to make offers or write contracts. And then we get an offer accepted. And once we get the offer accepted, so buyers in escrow, what is the first thing they're going to do with you guys at escrow once we have an accepted offer and I send you a message, hey, Maria, I wrote this offer. Bob and Mary Smith are in escrow and we have you as our escrow and title department. What is the first thing you're going to do for everybody?
I will reach out to all parties to make sure that everybody knows who we are as the escrow company. A lot of times U.S. agents have assistants that help you out. So we reach out to them. We reach out to the lender to make sure that the lender knows who we are for their buyer. And then we let the buyer know that there's a deposit that's due. The new contract is written that all EMDs for deposits are to be wired. Wire fraud is high in our industry. So we really like to make that phone call conversation with the buyer, introduce and make sure don't accept wiring instructions even from your agent. We want to be the one that's sending those wiring instructions to them. And then when it comes time to close, they will use those same wiring instructions for their funds to close as well, or they can bring in a cashier's check. Typically these days, we don't see very many deposits done through a cashier's check, but we're always welcome to do that as long as all the agents are okay with doing a check. And that's typically because the wire is a good funds and you can't take back a wire. A cash check you can actually have as fraud, or a personal check could also be fraud too. So that's why I to the wire, because you can see all the wire details, where it came from and that sort of thing. The only thing that is important when you are doing deposits is if you have maybe parents that are helping you out with a deposit, or if you own a business, XYZ trucking company, and you have $50,000 in there that you're going to borrow from your business to help put down closing deposits or closing funds, we would need to make sure we know that it's coming from a different party other than the buyers listed on the contract, even their company funds, because technically it's not their funds, it's third party funds. So we would get out third party instructions to make sure that they knew how to handle that. And typically we actually see those more than you would think. A lot of people are getting even with the deposits, or they may not have the money available because they're trying to stitch down in mutual funds or something, and they use company funds and then they pay themselves back. But that's it.
Definitely also for you guys out there that, like I said, you're learning how those pieces work. The lender, they would also have an issue with that if you're using money from one account to another. So between Maria and Escrow, they're going to have, where's this money coming from? We need to be able to source it. The lender is going to have a very similar question. So this way everybody ties into one another and we all know exactly what's going on. So that's awesome. So earnest money's in, we're doing inspections. We start to get disclosures. What disclosures are the buyers going to get from you?
We have what's called an opening package that we send out, and it's all DocuSign now, and it's all done through our Alana system. But if there is people out there that prefer paper, we have no problem. We'll still send it out paper to them or mail it. And the most important part of that is just to know how you want to be vested. Meaning, how do you want to hold title, either as husband and wife, or in your trust, or as an individual, or maybe only one buyer qualified and the other buyer doesn't qualify because maybe they have credit repair to do. So you may be married and only one person's on there. So our vet is kind of to know, are you married? Are you not? Because in California, community property is a big thing. And if you are, you have to have the spouse sign off on it. You can't just buy it on your own, even if it's all your own money that you got inherited or something like that. So there's things like that. They also disclose out there that there's taxes for the seller to pay if it was a rental for them. And then we just like to let the buyers know that we will handle that and make sure all the taxes are taken care of, meaning the property taxes, but the California franchise tax is for anybody that has to pay it for a rental. And then it's also good for the buyers to know if they're buying an investment property, this may be due once you sell the house as part of it in our opening package. And then pretty much we just ask for their lender information. That's pretty much it from the buyer's side. And if we do need to order any HOA docs, we like to have that, information to them as soon as we can. And typically about 10 days. But other than that, there's not much of it that we disclose to them until the very end.
What about the preliminary title report? That's something that you guys provide. That's kind of a disclosure, right?
Yes, that is very true. And it actually is in our opening package sometimes. Or once it's completed, it'll get emailed out to the buyer if we have it. And it's always good to look at your title report. And believe it or not, I do have buyers and agents questioning. Maybe they'll see a deed of trust on there, or they'll see something kind of weird on there that they just question. And easements are very, very good as a buyer to make sure you check all your easements to make sure there's nothing going in the back lot that you may want to build on eventually. In the Sacramento area, there is a lot of property out there that, you can have country property that does that. In the title report, that's pretty much it. But we do clean it all up and make sure that it's all nice and clean for you guys.
Cool. So let's say a preliminary title report, just because I want to give an example. Say the seller has child support or maybe a lease from a solar thing. How do you guys clean that up or clear that? What does that look like from your perspective?
Well, the solar is actually usually always on the title report. So that's a good example. Unless it's already paid in full, then sometimes it doesn't need a transfer. Okay. But there is pretty much, we handle all the transfers with it. Tesla's a popular one, Solar City. They actually contact the buyer now on their own without us and contacting them. They actually make the agents contact them as well. Yeah. And then they transfer, and they have to qualify the buyer to make sure they can handle the lease if there is a lease option that's done where they don't own the equipment and they're still leasing it out. The buyer actually has to qualify for that and qualify within their loan too. So that's something that they would get from the solar company. And that's typically, they can take anywhere from a couple of days to 2 weeks. But we have to make sure we get the solar release to release it from the property. And then we add it back on for the new buyer to get, and they get all of that sent to them from the solar company, typically all release documentation for that.
Cool. Something we didn't touch on, and I want to just really quickly catch on this, is title insurance as a whole. And I don't know if everybody knows what title insurance is. I mean, I've been doing this 20 years. I know you're right about the same amount as well. What does that title insurance cover, and for how many years after the fact?
It covers all the way until it sticks with the same owner. So if you buy title insurance and you own that property for the next 20 years, that same owner's policy will stick with you. However, if you sell it, then it becomes to the new owner. And if you can, so say if you were to, as a family and you gave it to another family member, that would be null and void, because a lot of people think that buy it with their parents to help them out just to get into the property. It sticks with the people that bought it, and it doesn't go like that. But the most important part about title insurance is to make sure that we have a very clean policy and that nobody can take that house away from you underneath you without having the liens cleared up. A big one is community property within California, so we make sure that the vesting is fully satisfied. If anybody has passed away, a lot of times there's people in trust. And actually right now, there's a lot of people that have passed and a lot of people that are selling family homes. So we make sure that the whole trust was taken care of and that any heirs that were associated with that got all of their money, got all of their proper documentation, and they all agree to sell the home. And then also make sure that you want to look at all the easements and the liens, because a big part of it is, I know somebody that tried to sell a property with having extra acreage on the side. Turns out that wasn't part of their property. That was an easement that was disclosed in the title report, but they didn't fully understand it.
Oh, okay.
And thought, oh, I have this extra acreage. We actually just had a gentleman come in too that talked about the back area. A lot of times pipelines for cities, if you have rural areas, they have it too. And you want to go build a pool, you may have a neighbor, but it's a quarter of an acre or half an acre. And those get kind of squirrely too. So we issue the title insurance and say, everything's nice and clear and here's your easements. But then we've had people that want to go build a pool in the back and nope, there's a pipeline there. So you want to that you really look at everything. So I actually have all my buyers with anything that affects that. They sign the easement to make sure that they know that that's there. That's a good reason. And then just also to make sure nobody can take the house away from you, and that free and clear properties that we make sure that there was no liens that can come back and get you later on down. And property.
Very cool. Awesome. All right. So we're in escrow, inspections, requests for repairs, and loans approved. We've negotiated everything. We're coming to the closing table. The lender is prepared to send the docs to you guys for your preparation. What does that look like?
So typically there is a closing disclosure that goes out to the buyers 3 days before they can sign. But nowadays, a lot of them will even get it out 5 or 6 days and still try to finish up the little maybe pest work that's being done, or pool work that's being done, something to that effect. But usually they give us the numbers and we start balancing and get it worked out so we can become close enough to the exact dollar amount that the buyer needs. And then the lender approval on their side. And usually with the buyer too, you want to make sure you have your homeowner's insurance in place. So as soon as you're looking around to get pre-approved, you also want to look around for some insurance. Usually it's car insurance that you're doing with it, or if you have a house currently, usually you use the same insurance company, but that seems to be sometimes a holdup for people. They may not realize the premiums are going up because everything in life is going up these days. So it is interesting. Some people really are shopping around more and more for insurances these days. So you have to have homeowner's insurance when you have a loan in place in order to close. So we get that homeowner's insurance. We'll pay that first year up front, typically through the escrow, not through the buyer, like they pay the up front type thing. And then once they go to it and we get all the numbers figured out, then we set up a signing, and we either can sign here in my office or one of the Placer Title offices, or if you prefer, we can send mobile notaries out to the buyer's homes or their place of business, whatever is most convenient for them. And we want to make sure we have all of our notaries that are licensed and bonded, background checked and everything to make sure that they can give you the best information if we're not there to be there to explain everything to you.
Wow. Okay. So they're going to sign docs. The buyer's lender has sent the docs to you guys. You've added in your portion. The buyer's now signed. And then I'm probably going to take them back to the house. We're going to do our final walkthrough. We've got about 72 hours to finalize the docs. You're going to send them back to the lender. Lender and escrow yourself, we're going to kind of go back and forth, like you said, to finalize the numbers. And then once we've got all that ready to go, my favorite words are released to record. What is the last piece that you guys do?
Well, very important part that I didn't want to cut you off for, but is the buyer's funds. So when you come into close, a lot of times lenders are able to dial in the final numbers before you come in to sign, because we want the surprises that we're delivering to you. However, in our world of our industry, we love 72 hours, but a lot of times it's the same day or the day before that you're coming in to sign and then you're releasing to record. So sometimes our lenders will work with the agent as well and give the final number, what's due, and the buyer may come in with a cashier's check and say, here you go. Or they may come in and say, hey, I need your wiring instructions. I'm going to go wire after I sign. So we need to make sure that we have those closing funds in, and any cashier's checks we need in 24 hours before you can close. So you can sign and then go, take a day or two to get us your funds type thing. Get your funds as soon as possible. And then we source the check funds or wire funds as well. And then, yes, and then the lender gives us their wire because we need the lender's money as well. And then they bring in their wire and then we're ready to go. They give us.
When you release to record, what is that? How do you guys do that? What does that look like?
Well, because of COVID, we have now turned into 99% of everything is electronically recorded. We do not do paper at all unless the system goes down. So we actually get all the documents here. We have a license that says that we hold all originals here to electronically record. So we can set up, which allows us to do more and more short notice closings where we get the documents in sort of last minute. Because we have to stay within your contract dates, whether it's 21 days, 30 days, whichever it is. And then, so we get the, I lost my train of thought for a hot second. The release to record part of it. Yes. So once it's going to release, we do it electronically, and there's not just a time anymore. It's not like, oh, you release at 9, 2, and whatever. It's literally all day that you can pretty much go. And it gets released electronically, and then the county does their side all electronically and spit it back to us and say it's recorded. And then once it's recorded, we do our final audit of all of the numbers, and because we pay utility bills and taxes and all of that fun stuff. So we have to make sure we do all of our numbers. And then once we're dialed in, we call you guys and say, congratulations, you're on record.
Cool. So you say you call you guys. So you're calling me as the agent. You're usually not calling the buyer, right? That's really, you call me, and then hopefully I'm the one calling the buyer. Maybe the lender calls the buyer, and then we say, hey, we're on record. It's time for us to get out to the property and hand you your keys and make you a happy homeowner.
Yes.
Cool. Is there any last minute stuff, anything that happens after the fact? Or do you guys ever get brought into an escrow, hey, something crazy happened during the escrow, we didn't catch it, and 30 days later, there's something that the buyer needs to do for you guys. That ever happen?
That does happen sometimes, yes. And we do a final closing package for the buyer too, I forgot to mention. We do give you your original recorded grant deed because we electronically record. So we do originally send that out to you either FedEx or through the mail, or a lot of times if they're close by, they'll come in and pick up their final package. Okay. And part of it. The only thing that really happens afterwards is maybe if the buyer needed to sign some kind of form that maybe the lender didn't catch, because so many lenders are funding electronically these days where we scan the packages in. We don't even give them their original documents. They get everything electronically scanned in. It's very rare now, I know, that a lender needs the original note in hand to be able to record. So sometimes we've caught that maybe when they do their final project, their final audit, they'll see that, for example, the 4506 has it's a document for the lender. There's a box you have to check. If it's missed, they'll come back afterwards and say that. And then sometimes it may be the homeowner's insurance that they just need to verify, or maybe the buyer didn't realize it made a payment, and then that kind of thing. Other than that, there's not many stuff on the buyer's side that we really deal with afterwards, because they're pretty much dialed in at that point when we go to close. And hopefully there's nothing else that we would need.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this. I appreciate you sharing with me. Of course, we've worked together for many years now, but all these buyers out here that don't know what to do, they're a little nervous about what the steps are. That's why I created this video. That's why I'm interviewing yourself, and I've had interviews with lenders, and we're going to get to inspectors and a few other folks as the process. But thank you for being a part of it. I truly appreciate you.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Of course. And we will talk soon. And to you guys out there, good luck, and look for the next video. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.